Ahora. Pronto.
Yalla!
Rápido!
I got time for a quickie.
Big shout out to Vox Cinemas Qatar. They legit have the best theater in the country at Doha Festival City. And make sure you're following them on social media at Vox Cinemas Qatar. Now on with the review. Parasite is a 2019 dramedy written and directed by the legendary Bong Joon-ho. It was shot by Kyung Pyo-hong, cut by Jin Mo-young, and has music from Jae Jung. It's rated R and has a runtime of 132 minutes. The award-winning cast is way too numerous to name, but it has some of South Korea's most talented actors on board. The story follows the poor Kim family as they scheme their way into the employ of the wealthy Park family. Once they're in, they have to be smart about the way that they conduct themselves so they don't give away what they are trying to do. And of course, there are unforeseen consequences that they have to deal with along the way. That's the very basic setup of the movie. It goes way deeper than that. The cinematography in this film is fantastic. Then again, most of Bong Joon-ho's movies have been gorgeous, and that's because of his longtime partnership with Kyung Pyo-hong. For me, Hong is one of the best cinematographers in the world. There are a lot of great setups and payoffs in the film. I can't really talk about them without spoiling it, so I'm not going to go into much more detail than that. As funny as this movie is, it has a serious dark side. It has very dark humor, which may turn some people off. But if you can appreciate how this dark sense of humor ties in with the satire and the point that this movie is trying to get across, it's pretty brilliant. Having been somebody who lived in poverty for a large chunk of my life, including being homeless for over a year when I was age 11, I can tell you this is a legit portrayal of what it's like to live as a poor person. And I like how they go into detail, and a lot of times it's in a subtle way that there are very real differences even when it comes to the less fortunate. There's always another rung down. There's always more suffering and more hunger and more things that you can experience. Part of what helps make all of these serious themes and strangely dark humor palatable is the music. The musical score in this film is fantastic, and it complements every scene, every situation. It really helps convey the tone of the movie. And that goes with the sound design too. It really complements the movie, the scenes, the mood that it's trying to convey, and most of the time it does it very subtly, except when it's not supposed to be subtle at all. There are times when the sound design really calls attention to itself, and that's when it's most effective. Something else that's effective is how Bong Joon-ho gets you on board with the Kim family, even though they're really unlikable and they're being scumbags and they're manipulating this family. You want to see them succeed. You want to see what happens with it. You want to see if they get caught. Part of the reason that you're rooting for them is most people who see this movie are not going to be filthy rich. So there's going to be something identifiable with this family or something that you've experienced that they are going through. And it's weird because it's surprisingly fun to see the shady stuff that they do, and then again later on when certain things come to light, it also makes you feel really bad because you were on board with what they were doing. And another part of the reason that it works is because the dynamic between the families, whether it be the characters within each individual family, the Kim family and the Park family, or the Kim family interacting with the Park family, it's always very interesting, it's always very unique. And even within these families there are kind of subsets of character dynamics, whether it be the two fathers or the two mothers, the kids. And that dynamic is bolstered and made even more powerful by the fantastic screenplay and the brilliant performances of every actor in this movie. There is not one weak link in the bunch. Now there's a point in the film about halfway through where you feel this huge dramatic shift. The tone just changes completely. But that's really only if you haven't been paying attention, because there's so much subtext. There's so many things that happen in this movie and so many little one-line jokes that if you're not really thinking about it, they're going to go right over your head. And they are funny on the surface, but they speak to something much deeper. And that includes everything from the Native American genocide to the wealthy taking advantage of the poor. And it even includes the poor looking at the wealthy like they are clueless morons. Whether it be the first half of the film, which is much more lighthearted, or the second half, which is much darker, the dialogue all the way through is just second to none. When I see a movie take a risk or do something that is surprising that will alienate some of the viewers, I am pleasantly surprised. So when I say that this movie is completely unpredictable, that there are so many weird and shocking things that happen, I'm not saying this lightly. When myself, my friend, and everybody else who was in that theater walked out after the movie was finished, finished, no one was talking. Everybody was in shock. Nobody knew how to talk about the movie. Even with myself, it took me a while to process, and I'm still thinking about this movie a week later. It's just a really tricky movie, and it has a lot to say, and if you're not paying attention, you're not thinking about it, and you're not leaving yourself open to it, you're going to miss a lot of it. This is one of the most original and unpredictable films I've ever seen. It's definitely Bong Joon-ho's most unpredictable film, which is saying a lot, because if you think about pretty much every movie that he's done, whether it was Snowpiercer or Okja or Mother or Memories of Murder, there are so many things that you don't see coming. You know, they just come out of left field, but they work. This movie has that in spades, and it does it much more effectively than even those films did. Even though this movie does have a good sense of humor for most of its runtime, in the end, it's going to be one of the most emotionally challenging films you will ever see. And that is not hyperbole, that is genuine. This movie really messed with me. You know, it had me rooting for certain people doing bad things, then it had me going against them, feeling like they did something wrong, and then again switching back. It just really pulls at your heartstrings. It really messes with your preconceived notions of wealth and privilege. The ending is one of the best endings I've seen ever. This is one of the best movies I've seen in the last decade for sure. This would have been my #1 movie of the year, with Dragged Across Concrete being my #2 if I had seen this, if I had had the chance to see this in 2019. In the end, there's something that happens and one of the characters tries to make it better. If this person was to try to go forth with this plan that they have, it would take them 540 years or so with their current income, which basically means they will never be able to fix it. They will never be able to make this thing right. Now, depending on your viewpoint, that's a great statement. It is a great joke, but it's also a reminder of what it's like to be, even in America. You know, the rich stay rich and the poor get poor as time goes on, because they're not raising minimum wage, even though things are getting more expensive. And those are all things that this movie touches on, even though it's a South Korean film, because this is a universal message. Every country in the world has rich, it has poor, it has people getting taken advantage of, it has people trying to get higher in their social status. It just has a profound way of telling a complex story in a very simple manner. I really have nothing negative to say about this movie. The ending will confuse some people, it will find some of them lost, because there's a few people I've talked to and they didn't realize what the ending meant, and when I said what it actually meant, they were kind of shocked. And that's because this movie is a savage satire that takes on the socio-economic disparity between the so-called upper and lower classes. It has a pragmatic but very nihilistic view on life. This movie's not going to be for everyone, but this is definitely a movie for me. Now, if you are watching this movie in Doha, there were 5 cuts to the film, but they weren't anything drastic. It didn't really affect the flow of the film, and when I walked out, I didn't feel cheated at all. So I'm definitely giving this my watch in Doha stamp of approval. And if you do watch it, obviously make sure you watch it in Vox Cinemas Qatar. So with all that being said, what is my score? Drum roll, please. 10 out of 10.